Hello everybody, this is a beach fishing tutorial based on the Night Fisherman. Here I'm driving to a local beach, somewhere where I do okay. The conditions on this day during the day were particularly bright, so I had some leftover bait, so I decided to go for a night session. So here we are on the beach. It's cold, but it's not cold, so we're wrapped up fairly well. This is the multiplier outfit I've got. And when I turned up, there was some other people where I wanted to fish. So what I decided to do, I fished up tide of them. So the fish would come to me first. This is just some leftover lugworm I've got, still in tip-top condition. I just leave it on the garage floor where it's nice and cold. They seem to like it when it's cold. Put a freezer chiller pack in the box as well to keep it nice and cold. So here we've got one rod rigged up, I think, and this was the fixed spool. Fixed spool rod and reel is definitely easier to cast at night. You haven't got to worry about cracking any gear off. That did actually happen to me once last night. This is the tide advancing on me. This is probably getting near the top of the tide. So here we are. This is the multiplier, and you can see that finger stall on there. You can actually, there's a Velcro on there. You can actually clip that up on there so it's out of the way, because like that, sometimes it gets caught in the line. But we're just giving it a heave. We've got a lead lift on. There is one or two snags out there, but if you're winding fast enough, you can just sort of. I use 30-pound main line there. So if I do get caught in some snags, I've got a good chance of getting all my gear back. So yeah, that is probably a little bit heavy, but sometimes certain venues do warrant heavy line. I think I'm using 60-pound shock leader on there, and obviously you can see the tripod in the background there. So yeah, just a little tip about when you turn up on venue, if there's a lot of people fishing, try and get up tide of them, because the theory is the fish are coming to you first. Okay, and I have been burnt in the past when I've gone down tide of a load of anglers years ago, and I see them hauling up some giant smooth hound, and me don't get anything until they clear off. So but sometimes here we are. We got to a flatfish. So that was either a dab or a flounder. Little match hooks, little size, number 2 hooks they are. I cannot emphasize the importance of using small hooks when you are surf casting. If you want to attract a big fish and you need a big hook, have a big hook on, but just above it or just below it or whatever, just tie on another snood and just have one little hook baited up with some good fresh bait like lugworm, something like that, and you'll be able to pick off your soles, bass. You'd be surprised, even some biggish fish will. That looks like a flounder, a very small flounder, that. But it's nice to see, especially when your target species, for whatever reason, hasn't shown up. This year in particular, I do think it's very mild. I think the sea's been quite warm. It needs a real blast, a real cold sort of blast, and a good storm to sort of churn it all up. I don't like fishing off my part of the coast when it's all flat calm and the winds have been blown from the south. You need some sort of, my area, you need some sort of stiff easterlies, and you need it all getting nice and cold for some decent fish to turn up. But there you go, that's what it's like sometimes. So yeah, we're fishing the flood on this particular venue. Years past, Codling had shown up when it was on night sessions, on night tides this time of year, but nothing, no Codling last night. But we caught some whiting, and here I'm winding in really fast, which is a bit unusual. But yeah, we're sort of there's one or two whiting about, a few flatfish, leftover bait. It was a short session. I was only fishing for about 4 hours. Probably it wasn't even 4 hours, but it's just over a peak period of time where when there's not been many fish around, you just do a session, especially with some leftover bait, just to see if there's anything there. Not only that, it's nice just to get a bit of fresh air and just be out of the house. And at the end of the day, if you don't fish, you won't catch them. But that's a nice whiting. You do get one or two nice whiting there. but he went back. I'm not sure. I think he was on a 2-0 hook. He was on a 2-0 hook, lovely condition, bright and silver. You can eat them. They're a bit bony, but they are, they are sort of relatively tasty, but a bit bony. Just on straight lugworm. Sourced locally, dug locally, should I say? And yeah, good condition. Popping back. Sometimes they are a bit fragile, and they don't go back very well. And often you see a seagull will go flying in after it. Yeah, so tips for night fishing. I cannot emphasize the importance of maybe a fixed spool reel is a lot easier to use than a multiplier. I've been using a multiplier for years, and even last night I got caught out and being in a bit of a hurry or doing something slightly wrong, and that was enough to crack off my lead. So sometimes when you put at night time, you put a bit of welly into your cast, and if you haven't got all your ducks lined up in a row for whatever reason, usually it's frustration, and you can see your lead and your gear go flying off. So I actually went down to one rod, and I just put more bait on 2 hooks, just fishing with one rod. Partly because I'd fished the day before and I was tired, so I just, but I'd lost one lead, and I thought I can't be bothered to rig it up. But one rod is enough. A lot of good anglers will just use one rod. If you're walking a long way to get to a particular spot, like you've got to walk for an hour and a half or something like that, you wouldn't take your tripod and you go with one rod. You just take a beach spike. If you're going sort of somewhere bass fishing, you want to go and fish an area where no one else fishes, all that sort of stuff, you can go light. I like fishing with one rod. So yeah, it's that was quite a nice peaceful session. Yeah, so we're fishing a flood tide here. So the tide is going from left to right. So when you cast, you want to sort of try and angle. So if straight out in front is 12 o'clock, you want to try and cast to around about sort of 10, half 10, something like that. And then you pay out loads of line, and by the time your gear settles down, it'll be sort of more right out in front of you. Sometimes a strong tide can drag your lead and gear around a little bit. Now, if you're fishing close to sort of other people, or even a groin or a revetment or something like that, you can sometimes find that your gear, if you're not careful, will just drag round into it. You wind somebody else in, wind your other rod in, and all sorts. So you've got to try and. It's difficult sometimes to get your gear in where you would like it at night time. So the most important thing you want to do is to try and make sure that you're not getting tangled around your other rod if you're fishing another rod, and I've been doing it for years, and I even get I struggle to sort of get the gear where I want it to. So distance at night is not so important, but it's still nice to give it a good pelt. And if you're fishing a fixed spool, you really can put a big lead on, get a nice stiff rod, get your gear out, put a couple of hooks on it, really get your gear out there. Lead lifts are quite good. They sort of help to pick your gear up and get it in sort of up higher and in quicker and stuff like that. Might slow down your cast a little bit. Obviously the lighter line you use, the further you're going to be able to cast, but I like to have a bit of heavy line on in case I do sort of wind into some snags and bits and pieces. So yeah, night time is definitely it's 10 times harder than during the day. It's not so enjoyable. It's very frustrating to try and do things. That's where you need a good light, but the rewards can be high, a lot higher. So it's definitely if you're after some specimen fish, it's definitely a good time. You do really increase your chances at night. But night during the day for me is a lot more. If you're lucky enough to go on a good day during the day, it's a lot more enjoyable. There you go. So we just tied on a shock leader knot there, and we were fishing some frozen crab I'd got on a twin paternoster rig, and Funny enough, that was the set of gear I actually lost in the end. It snapped off. It survived the initial sort of launch off, so to speak. But something had happened with the line on the spool when I retrieved it in last. It sort of crossed over and it just nipped in tight and just snapped it off. That was only £15 on my Daiwa Millionaire. I just literally swapped over the reel because the previous reel, the Abu Garcia, for whatever reason, wasn't getting so much distance. I think I've just shooed a dog away there actually. There was an owner who didn't put his dog on the lead. I got all hooks and everything around there. The owner approached me and said, "Oh, don't worry, it won't bite." But I was like, I'd rather you have it on the lead, mate, because I've got all hooks and stuff. They're buggers for trying to nick your bait, and it's like. But they're none the wiser, are they? But there you go. You just have to sort of be aware if you see a dog coming. You just have to put your bait inside your tackle box, close the lid, and any hooks or traces you've got around, get them up high on your tripod, out the way, or back in your tackle box. So sometimes when you're trying to fish and you're in a hurry or your mind's somewhere else, you have to worry about members of the public and their dogs in interference. There's a lot to think about. I wouldn't skimp too much on your bait when you're applying it to your hook. You've got some fresh bait and you've made the effort to go at night time. Don't be as long as you turned up at what you believe is sort of peakish time. You want to conserve your bait earlier on, but if you're over a good time in the tide, make sure you put your bait on. Just put plenty on. There's nothing worse than doing a good cast and you've got it all out there and you then put that much bait on it and this, that, and the other. Just put it on. And that can be the difference between getting the fish you want on there and not. So it's like it wasn't the greatest session I've had in the world last night, but it was still nice to be out there. There was other guys fishing as well. I think what I did actually catch was pretty similar to what they've been getting on the forums and things like that. Unfortunately, the weather at the minute has not been very good at all. It's not been cold enough. The wind's not been blown in the right direction and stormy enough. Really, your beach fishing's best straight after a good churn up, a good sort of onshore wind. And for codling fishing, that won't be bitterly cold. Absolutely, the sea wants to be ice cold, and it's just been too warm. It's all been too warm, but it's still been nice to go out there, put some small hooks on, and get some flatfish and some whitings and bass and one or two other bits and pieces. But when it's like this, I used to do all beach fishing. That was all I ever do. But I've gone back into sort of doing some more sort of freshwater fishing to sort of supplement when things ain't going so well with the beach fishing. What fish are there? Then I can fall back onto something else. You see, there's one or two fish being caught out in the boats, but with this bloody COVID virus thing, it's very difficult to get on or it's less easy to go on a charter boat with other people and stuff like that. You might have to charter the whole thing yourself, where it's a little bit more expensive. But here I'm just waiting on the finger stall. It looks like I'm about to give it a cast. It was very windy. Now, one thing I would say about the tripod, you really want to, the wind was across to the tripod, so that did actually fall over. So I think what I'd done, instead of having the rod up high, I've actually angled the rod sort of lower down, lower centre of gravity. I think the lantern actually fell over as well. One minute there was no wind, and the next minute you get a gust. There's little things like that which can catch you out. If you were to hang your jacket on the tripod, the wind will catch it and can blow the whole thing over. So you want to be very conscious of what you can get. You can tie a bag of stones. There's a little hook underneath that tripod, and you can get yourself a Waitrose bag or whatever. Fill it with a load of loose stones, nice and heavy, and just hook it on it, and that won't go anywhere. Now, that's one I've just thought up now, but I never do it because I'm just too in a hurry, or I forget about it, or this, that, and the other. But often you'll see other anglers, and you'll see how things weigh down. Even their brolly, their storm brolly or whatever, they'll tie a rope and a sort of bag of stones to it. weed wasn't too much of a problem last night compared to the other day. There was a bit of tide there on the top half of the ebb. It was dragging the gear around a bit. But no, there was no really sort of fancy fish. Difficulty with the multiplier, when you're retrieving at night, you do have to get an even line lay for your next cast. Even though I was doing that, that still caught me out. I mean, I did tweak the magnets slightly. I went from a setting 6 down to about 4.5, and that's when it snapped off. So with a gust of wind getting behind it and the spool overruns, plus the line is a bit loose or it crosses over, you can have a crank off. Now, they are Gemini leads. Now, I don't think I'll be buying any more than Gemini leads because they do have a tendency to ping out. I even whacked an elastic band around the end to keep them in, and we managed to lose that. But there, I've just put a whole crab on there on like a size 4.0 hook, just lobbing it out. Now a cod, he will feel that. He can sense it. He'll smell it. He'll smell the crab. It's part of his natural diet, and he'll, you know. So it's worth trying things like that whole crab. But you need the fish to be there. This is the problem. The fish aren't there at the minute. This is the frustrating thing. But I'll be honest with you, night fishing though, that is tiring. That's harder to think. That's harder to do things. Now, I did forget my headlamp. Now, if you've got a headlamp, it makes things a little bit easier. I just have one good base light, and I try and do everything off that. I think if the fish were there, I'd probably bring my headlamp because I'd be more switched on. But because we're sort of going into these sessions where we're still waiting for the first run of decent fish to sort of turn up, the confidence levels are a little bit low, you see. And fishing is a lot about confidence. So we're just trying different things. Some small hooks just to see what other species are out there as well, so it's not a complete waste of time. Now, I'll keep my lugworm in there because it's a cooler as well. I've got an ice block in there. A lugworm wants to always be kept when you're storing it. That should last for about 4 or 5 days, really. I keep it on the garage floor where it's nice and cold. Some frozen crabs in there. I've got to just put the hook through, wrap loads of cotton around it, and just hoss that out as well. You can leave them on. You can leave them out there fishing a lot longer, you see, as long as the weed doesn't pull it around. So yeah, it was quite an enjoyable session. I don't think the other lads caught anything. They'd left before I had a chance to have a natter with them. I always try, if there is a few anglers down there fishing alongside you, as you're going home, it's always worth just saying, "Oh, you're right, mate. You caught anything?" And it just gives you a gauge on how well you're doing at fishing. Do you know what I'm saying? If you're catching the same as them, slightly less or slightly more, that gives you an indication of whether you need to improve on something. Am I using the right bait? All these sort of things. So it's really important when you're down there is that you try and get bits of information off other anglers. Here I'm just whacking the cotton around there. You can see the finger stall around my left hand there because I'm using a fixed spool reel. It's always wise to bring some spare main line with you as well, because in case you crack it all off and you need some fresh line. At night time, you want some drink, you want a bit of food, you want a woolly hat on. Definitely want, over your ears as well, because sometimes the wind can really get in your ears. It's all well and good having a cap on or just a hat, but you really want something which goes over your ears. You can almost get like in the real winter, when it's really, really cold down there, if you haven't got something over your ears, that can almost give you bloody earache. So, I use fishing salopettes as well, they're warm. I've got to have a pair of long johns underneath. I cannot explain, it's like, you need to identify whether it's going to be raining and how cold it's going to be, because those are the two things which, even if you've got some really good bait and the fishing's quite good, if you start getting cold and you start shaking, that's enough to make you, pack your gear up and go back in your car. And, do you know what I'm saying? Just invest in the right gear. You'd be surprised what things can, could knock you off balance when the fishing's good. So there's lots of things. I mean, last night there were some anglers. There was 4 anglers in the spot I wanted to go. So it's a very limited area on that particular beach where you can fish because there's some snags, you see. So straight away, it's like I had 4 anglers, so I knew I had to get up tide of them, because if I'm down tide of them, I'm definitely going to get anything. So, you know, but when I went up tide of them, I put myself into an area right adjacent to where there's some snags. But because I fish this beach a lot, I know where they are, and I know how close I can get to them. So I had to be really careful on the accuracy of my casting. One slight overcast and I would have just lost my gear, because there's all rocks out there. And to the right of me, there's a groin. So I couldn't cast too far to the left, I couldn't cast too far to the right. So I just had this small, narrow area where I an up tide of the anglers of where I could go. Failing that, I would have had to walk about a mile to my right to find somewhere, which is just out of the question. It's just, you know. So this way, we kept close to the car, we kept up tide of the anglers, and we didn't lose any other gear apart from me just getting a little bit too carried away with my multiplier. So if you're starting out night fishing, go for the fixed spool. A lot easier to manage. So here we're just baiting up the size 4 or the size number 2 Aberdeen hooks with some lugworm. That lugworm's about 2 days old. Just kept on the garage floor, nice and cold. Keeps it in good condition. I put a little plastic bowl over the top so the mice in the garage don't eat it. Tamper with it. And yeah, we picked off a dab, some whiting. I had about 10 whiting that caught a dab. I was fishing for about 3.5 hours, something like that. This spot is only 30 minutes from where I live. If the fish are in, you can. I've actually walked off this beach with 12 codling. The year was 1998, 97, something like that. It's over 20 years ago. No word of a lie. That same tackle box, I had 12 codling, about £1.50, £2 each, and they were just as soon as the bait was hitting the water, they were just whacking into it. There must have been loads of them then. I don't know whether, well, God knows what's going on. But the tip looks like I tipped that with a little bit of ragworm as well. Plenty of bait on there. Don't be frightened to give it a good pelt out with a nice big lead. There's a few lights out there at sea. There's a few ships and oil rigs and bits and pieces. Tide slowly coming in. So yeah, it's just watching the rod tip. And little bites. I generally leave my bait out there for no longer than about 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, and then I want to wind it in. Usually you get a hit straight away, first sort of 5 minutes. If you're going to get anything any good, usually that's within about 5 minutes of that bait being in the water. There was a few shrimps there last night picking the bait. I believe that's what they were. Right guys, so I hope you enjoyed the video. Sorry there wasn't no big fish caught, but yeah, please subscribe. Many more videos coming along the way, and yeah, let me know how you get on. Alright, see you guys.